Welcome to Daily Armor. Today we're going to be in two scriptures. The main one's going to be coming out of Proverbs chapter 16, looking at verse number 9. And then we're going to flip over a few chapters to Isaiah 55, verse number 8. And we'll see kind of how they go hand in hand and they complement one another. But let's go to Proverbs first, chapter 16 and verse number 9. Verse number 9 says, "A man's heart deviseth his ways, or his way, but the Lord directeth his steps." Let me say it again. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. When I think about a man's heart, and it's not just speaking about the beating of our heart, but that's talking about like our soul. It's talking about our passions, our feelings, our appetite, what we dream about, what we're inclined to like, what we're inclined to do, what we're resolved to do, what we've determined to do based on the way we feel about it or the desires that we have about it, what we want to do, what we think about something, comes from, or what we imagine us being able to do. Like my imagination, I have, the imagination I have, the things that I think about. I mean, it's based on what I can see, and it's based on what I feel. It's, like I love to travel, it's based on, a lot of what goes on inside. I have an appetite for certain things. And even though I have that appetite for certain things, that doesn't mean that I'm supposed to give into it. So, I have a struggle just like everybody else of, well, this is what I want, but this is what the Lord wants me to choose. You've got some doors that are open. Maybe you've got 2 doors. Maybe you've got 2 options. Maybe you've got, like, sometimes I have like 10 options. There's like so many things that it's possible for me to do. But when I have to think about what I would choose, then I'm devising. So it says, a man's heart. So that's our appetite, our feelings, what we like to do, whether you like, this or that, whether you like red or blue or purple or green, it's like, what are you drawn to? What are you drawn to? I'm more of a blue person. I love turquoise. I'm drawn to that. That's my heart. That's what draws me. And then deviseth. So I'm going to think of a plan. I'm going to plan some things. I'm going to calculate some things. I'm going to imagine some things based on what my appetite is, what my feelings are, what I am drawn to. If I'm going to be planning something, I'm going to be doing those things based on me. But does that mean that's what I'm supposed to follow? No, that's not. Doesn't mean that's what I'm supposed to follow. I'm not supposed to follow me. The Lord says to follow Him, And I have to separate the two, because if I am not careful, I will only do those things that I'm drawn to, that feel good to me, that, make me comfortable, that keep me in my little box, that give me this false sense of security, because I'm like, Lord, I don't feel safe out there. When He's saying, I want you to get out of the boat. And I'm like, Lord, I want to be in the boat. He's like, but I want you to get out of the boat. I want you to, but Lord, the waves are boisterous. Lord, the wind is blowing. Lord, it's going to knock me down. There's dangerous things down there, Lord. There's things right below my feet, Lord, and it's scary, and I want to stay here, and that's where I feel comfortable. That's where I want to stay. But the Lord's drawing me out so many times, and He's saying, but I want you to get out of the boat. I want you to get out of the boat. And there's 2 scenarios. We can follow our heart, and our heart is desperately wicked and deceitful above all things. That is a sure thing, is that I can deceive my own self. I can come up with all kinds of scenarios. I can figure out a plan. It does not mean it has anything to do with what's right or what's wrong, or, what's safe, or what's, you can stay cooped up at home. You can stay strapped, stay trapped in your own home and never leave it, and be afraid to get out into the world, be afraid to get out of the boat, and the boat go down, the house be destroyed. I mean, you cannot just stay safe in your home and think that you're safe. If the Lord wants you to if He says, I want you to get out of the house, I'm like, Lord, but I don't feel safe getting out of the house. I want to stay here. I'm depressed. I'm tired. I'm hurting. I want to stay here. And he's saying, I want you to get out. I want you to get out of that house. And we don't listen. God's directing. See, he's pointing me in another direction. I'm wanting to go here or over there or whatever, or even just stay put. But the Lord's saying, I want you to get out of the boat. I want you to get out of the house. I want you to go over here. I got something better for you to do. He's directing me. So I'm devising a plan, but I'm limiting what the Lord wants to do with me. I'm limiting what God has for me. I'm limiting my time. I'm limiting my abilities. I'm limiting my imagination, because God's got so much more in store that I cannot even imagine. And He's already shown me that. And I'm excited. I want to continue to see those things and experience those things. I don't want to be trapped. And and not anybody trapping me, but me trapping myself. This is me. So a man's heart deviseth his way, and I don't want to go that way. I don't want to go my way. I don't want to stay when he wants me to get out of the boat. I don't want to stay in the boat because I feel safe in the boat. And he's like, but Teresa Gail, you don't understand. The boat's fixing to go down. And I need you to get out of the boat, because even though I know that it's scary being out here on the water, that's where you're more safe. I know there's sharks. I know there's high waves and crashing down and feeling like you're going to just plunge under and never be able to get back up. He says, but you're always safe wherever that I have you, whatever I have in store, wherever I'm directing you. Now, but the Lord directeth his steps. He is directing. The Lord himself, our Creator, the Holy One of Israel, perfection, the beginning and the end. There is no end with the Lord. He changes not. There's no second. God is number one. And his direction, he said he's giving direction. He's giving, he's pointing at me and he's like, Teresa, I want you to get out of the boat over here. I want you to get out of your comfort zone. I want you to get out of this little box you've got yourself in, and I want you to get out, and I want you to experience other things. I want you to be around other people. I want you to try new things, because God is saying you need your mind to be exercised. You need your faith to be your faith muscles need to be exercised. And we're getting out and we're going. We're growing. I'm taking you somewhere. He's directing me somewhere. That means that it's been established. He's got a plan. He is ordering things. And I like this one in the Bible dictionary. It said directed. And one of the directions was, or one of the definitions was directed aright. So in other words, I'm like, well, I'm wanting to go do this, and I'm wanting to go do that, or I'm wanting to stay here, or I'm not, And the Lord's saying, but you're not safe there, and I have a different plan for you. And so He's directing, and He's directing. He's making things right. He's like, you're not on the right path. You think you are, and you're scared, and you're worried, and all these things, but you're not safe. You have a false sense of safety when I'm following my way, because my way is going to be, of course. I mean, we're all, we're all the same here. We only want to do those things that make us comfortable, those things that, that we feel comfortable with, or that we like. Nobody wants to go out there and do those things they don't like to do. I get so aggravated when I hear, people talk about, well, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And I'm like, it's got to be done. It's not a choice of whether I like to. I don't like to clean the toilets. I don't like to do the dishes. I don't even, I don't care and enjoy. I enjoy working. I enjoy getting things done. I enjoy the results, but the process of it isn't always pleasant. It's got to be done. And the Lord's saying it's got to be done. He's directing. And I want Him to always be directing. He's always directing me, but I have to push back about the way I feel. And I have to look at Him. And so He's making me ready. He's ready. He's accomplished something in me. He is accomplishing things. He has a plan that is established, that is firm, that is stable. That's where stability comes from. And it's not coming from my circumstances or my perceived circumstances. And he's directing my steps. That's the course of life. One step in front of the other, the course of life. And if I'm kind of trying to march in place and I'm kind of stay right here, Lord, I just want to stay right here. And he's like, no, I want you to march. I want you to have some forward action with that. I'm taking you somewhere. Your course of life is, you think this is all there is. And he's like, Lord's saying, there is so much more. You just don't even realize it. And you might be like me, and I'm in my 50s, and you think, well, this is just the way how things are. And the Lord's saying, no, don't look at age and think you're just in this little comfort zone and that this is all there is. Whether you're in your 50s, or your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, your 90s. God can, if he's directing, he's got a plan and a purpose. And he's saying, I'm taking you somewhere. I've got a purpose and a plan and a job for you. And it's exciting. It is not going to be, it's not always going to be what we think. It's not always going to work out how we want. But as long as it works out, and it will work out how God wants, it's just, am I going to enjoy the process? I'll enjoy it so much more if I am following his direction instead of following my heart. Don't follow your heart. Oh my goodness, that's the worst thing we can do, is follow our heart. We have to follow the word of the Lord. We have to follow his counsel, his direction, him. I need to hear a word from the Lord. You need to hear a word from the Lord. And then when you hear it, we just got to do it. And don't think about how it makes us feel, if it makes us fearful, if it makes us uncomfortable, if it's something we're not used to, if we don't even know how to do it. And so many times he just makes me do things and I'm like, Lord, I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at that. And he's like, that's okay. You're not going in your abilities or your strength, but to be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, not my own. So see, I don't have to worry when it takes me out of my comfort zone and it goes against what I feel like I want to do, when God's got it all figured out. Now I want to take us to Isaiah 55, verse number 8. And like I said, the course of life that he has for me and for you, it's not going to make sense. It did not make sense for the Lord to move us from North Carolina to Florida. The timing was, to me, the timing was horrible. Our church, where Todd was already pastoring, was busting out of the seams on Sunday mornings. We were fixing to have to build. I mean, it was so full. I had started sitting in the choir loft just to open up a little bit more seating. I didn't even come down after choir. I would just sit up there. Drove him crazy because he didn't like me being behind him. He wanted to see where I was. But we were growing. And it was just, the Lord was just flooding people. And it wasn't anything that we did any different. It was just, the Lord just was sending people. That was one thing. The second thing was my daddy got diagnosed with cancer. And I was going with them to doctor's appointments, and we were trying to see what the options were, and if daddy needed to go here, there, what was going on. And it just, you don't leave your parents in the midst of all that. That's a terrible time to do something. And then the third thing was, Todd and I were having a struggle in our marriage. He didn't think a thing was wrong, and I did. And I was upset, and I was frustrated. And, I wanted to deal with some things, and he didn't want to, because he was like, everything's fine. You're just emotional. You're just hormonal, just whatever. He thought I was crazy. And another thing was, I was in college. I had just went back to college, and I was going somewhere. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to finish college, and I wanted to have a degree, and I wanted to have a career, and my kids were all in school. And this was the perfect time. And they were going to a wonderful school, and they were getting a wonderful education, and they were flourishing. They were prospering. Things were going well. And my brother died, and I was grieving. And I felt hopeless and helpless, even if it was just in moments. And things were changing in my family. And then a friend died. And then a sister-in-law died. And then an uncle died. And all of this happened within a few months of one another. The diagnosis, the going back to school, the death of the family and the friends, and all of this was just so back to back. And I was overwhelmed. And then in the midst of all of that, God says, you got to go. And he tells me, he says, trust me, Teresa, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not into thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. He's directing my steps. He's directing my course of life. He's directing your course of life. And he gave me a song, and he says, and I'll go with you. And I'm like, Lord, you have to go. I can't go if you don't go. I don't want to go anywhere the Lord's not. And the Lord's saying, I'm going somewhere. And I'm taking you somewhere, and you have to follow. And in the midst of all of that, Daddy lived 8 more years. He enjoyed coming to Florida. He would get so excited. We had some wonderful memories. So much happened. It was actually what my marriage needed, because we kind of had to cling to one another even stronger, even more. And we were always very close. I've always felt very blessed. Todd and I we're just very synced up. And the struggles that we were having, the Lord took care of it. Every single bit of it. I mean, in such a miraculous way that blows my mind. And this is exactly where we were supposed to be, but we had to leave the house. We had to get out of our box. We had to leave our comfort zone. We had to quit following, this is what I want to do. Lord, I want to stay right here. I love North Carolina. I absolutely adore North Carolina. I felt like I was like in the center of everything I needed to be. I could go north very quickly. I could go south very quickly. I could go to the beach very quickly. I could go out west very quickly. I was just kind of like right there in this little great place. Wonderful location, great people, wonderful county. And I loved my home church right there. When they had things, we had opportunities, we got to go. And just my best friend, she's right there. We were like 9 miles apart. Now we're like 600 miles apart. And all of that was changing. And my feelings about it was, I was scared. I was grieving. I was upset. And if I'd have followed my heart, I'd have stayed. But I submitted to not following what I wanted to do. And I submitted and I went where the Lord wanted me to go. And I'm telling you, he has done some absolutely amazing things. And the list just goes on and on and on. And you didn't feel like, and I still adore North Carolina. Y'all know that. But I'm home. In Florida, I'm home. And that God did that. And my marriage is, everybody's got struggles. Everybody has moments. But my marriage is better than I ever could have imagined. Me and my husband are closer to one another than we can ever imagine. And we've got room for improvement on that. Because there's some things that I could, I see that I'm like, we could do a few things different still. And improve. And it's something that we should always be working at. And we have to continue to work at it. But God has done so much. It boggles my mind. And it never would have dawned on me. It just never would have dawned on me to do what God has done, what God has directed us to do. And I said all that to say this, Isaiah 55, verse number 8. I believe, yeah, verse number 8. Isaiah 55, verse number 8. This is the Lord speaking. This is not me. This is not Isaiah. This is the Lord speaking himself. Listen to what God says. God says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. See there? It's the Lord saying it. For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, saying the Lord. He thinks about it differently than we do. I didn't think it was a good time to leave. God said this is the perfect time. I didn't think it was a good way to go. And the Lord said, this is the perfect plan. This is the perfect place to go. I'm like, Lord, if you want us to move, I'll move to Myrtle Beach. I love Myrtle Beach. It's still my happy place. I don't get to go. Haven't been in years. Haven't been, well, I guess I've been been about 3 years since I've got to go. But it's still a happy place for me. And if I followed my heart, I would probably follow it right to Myrtle Beach, or at least Charleston, you know. But I love Myrtle Beach. But I'm not supposed to follow my heart. I'm supposed to follow his direction. He's pointing his finger at me, and he's pointing his finger at you, and he says, I'm taking you somewhere. I'm directing you somewhere. And yes, you have to get out of your box. Yes, you have to get out of the boat. Yes, you have to get out of this house. Yes, you have to do some things that are going to make you uncomfortable, but I'm taking you somewhere, and I have a plan, and you're safe with what I have for you. And he can do some miracles, and he's got some miracles waiting for me and waiting for you, but we have to get out of the boat. We have to follow his direction, and it's exciting. And he's saying, my thoughts are not your thoughts. You know, you would never have thought of this. You would never think to do this. You would never think to do that. You would never think that way. That's okay. His ways are above our ways. His ways are blowing our mind. Neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. He's saying, you would never do it that way, but that's okay. We're going to do it my way. God's saying we're going to do it my way because his way is firm. It is stable. It is established. It is secure. It is directing you to the right place. It is directing you in the right way. He is able to perform that he's doing in me and in you. He's able to take care of those situations. He knew before that, you know, you ever took step in the right direction to do, following the direction of the Lord. He knew the obstacles that were going to be out there. He knew the winds and the waves and the dangers and all of the calamities in the way and the obstacles. He knew all that beforehand, but that doesn't bother him. It just bothers me. But he's like, don't let it bother you. Just keep following the Lord's direction. Keep following his direction. Jesus. Keep following Jesus. Jesus said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.